technology is never neutral. It's the first time we're dealing with another sort of intelligence, and it's recursive. Society is not really ready for it. How did you get bankrupt? It says gradually and then suddenly. Within 3 years, there'll be major changes. At a point then my friend and I realized that we are going to be in Dallas for long term. We decided to do something about it instead of just looking around and complaining. Prism is a way for companies to create AI literacy for their employees, while at the same time helping them adopt AI. So how do you create a microlearning environment where they can spend 15 minutes a day? We all know that AI will take away jobs. There's been lots of people saying different things. The reality is that if somebody is doing something repetitive and manual, there's no way that they can keep doing it with AI.
There's a lot of people who kind of get stuck in that negativity, even though they are part of that community and they don't want to embrace it or even try to make it flourish. How did you experience many of those people, and how did you handle those types of critics?
Saw many people who could have helped us, but they didn't really jump in the beginning. They just watched. Instagram got sold right in front of us. It came and it got sold within a very short amount of time. There are a lot of potential negatives associated with AI. So I actually try my best to share those concerns, because if people are not aware, then a lot of damage can be done.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Caravan podcast. Today, we're joined with Babar Bhatti, the founder of Dallas AI, as well as the current chief AI officer at Prism Skills. How are you doing today?
Walaikum salam. Doing very well and very happy to be here.
No, we're excited to kind of chat because you're definitely a veteran when it comes to DFW in particular. I know we were chatting just before the cameras got started recording on the level of your hands and involvement in community building in the tech space, particularly in DFW, and for several years now. On top of that. I guess starting off with, Dallas has this reputation for many, many things. As someone who's kind of been a community builder from a tech side, how has it been on the frontier as a builder, but also as an attendee, and being so well fluent in technology? Do you think Dallas has a different reputation that people don't know about from an outsider perspective?
I think Dallas has a reputation of kind of sleepy or boring in terms of tech activity and sharing. And at a point then my friend and I realized that we are going to be in Dallas for long term. We decided to do something about it instead of just looking around and complaining. That was the reason why we started Dallas AI. We said, okay, we want to go out and learn, meet other people who are doing this work. So let's try this, and if other people join us, that will be great. So over time, we had the opportunity to invite other people and share their stories with others. And I think that's really the key. If you go out, look for people who are willing to share their experiences and help other people, then the community starts building. I think it's the authenticity, because we did find many meetups where there were lots of companies coming and say, hey, here's our cloud, here's our data product. And it's interesting to some extent, but it's not what really people want. People want to connect with other people and say, okay, what can I learn from someone? What recommendations do you make? And one thing that we found interesting was that the meetup was usually 45 minutes, but people wanted to spend more time networking before and after the actual event.
I think it's usually in the before and after, you can really have your guard drop. Yes. And you're not really talking about business from the sense of making a sale. You're talking for the sense of connecting. Right. And it's sometimes even for us, as Muslims, I feel like whenever we go for a halakha, or even if we're going for Jamaat, that is the reason you're going. Yes. But what happens before and after is really what keeps you coming back around again with a level of excitement, not a sense of accountability or expectation. So when you were building this community and getting people like rallying in, right? Sometimes it's like not having that space and finding someone who is doing it to bring people in. Was the feedback super positive when it initially started, or were there moments of resistance of like, oh, why are you trying to make this happen in Dallas? Because I think there's a lot of like negative people that even today that still exists, like, oh, like tech and Dallas aren't like synonymous in any capacity, which I obviously disagree with. But there's a lot of people who kind of get stuck in that negativity, even though they are part of that community and they don't want to embrace it or even try to make it flourish. How did you experience many of those people, and like how did you handle those types of critics?
We saw many people who could have helped us, but they didn't really jump in the beginning. They just watched. So we didn't really get much support. And when we did these events, sometimes we would get many attendees and sometimes very few people would show up. So we never really knew whether we were, connecting with people and community, but I think it just takes time. Once we did that consistently many times and people started realizing that yes, they're going to have a quality speaker and then they are not going to waste our time, then they started coming. Because with these kind of meetups, there's all these factors. It's the end of the day, they have to drive. So it's like they're investing 3 to 4 hours of their daytime. So it has to be worth their time. But we didn't really get a lot of support. And we didn't want to create any kind of friction. So we never really charged anything for those meetups. And we brought food, we brought water. And I think over time, the topic became more popular. There was more interest. And we gained some support from some people who realized that, we were neutral. We were not aligned with any vendor, and we were not, aligned with any kind of other political entity. So we were, but when I realized through doing this that, Dallas is so big. What happens in Fort Worth, people in Frisco and McKinney don't really care or realize much. And all these cities have their own Chamber of Commerce, they have their own Economic Development Council. So there's some competition. And many of the bigger companies here are not encouraging of, going out and telling a lot of people about what they're doing. So you have to kind of tease it out of people. So we had to go and ask people multiple times, hey, we do this thing, and would you like to come and talk about what you're doing? And so it took quite a bit of an effort.
When you mentioned some people who don't want to like help you in the beginning, I assume they turned around and were now wanting to help. What was that process like? Because sometimes people feel a type of way. It's like, well, you didn't know me when I was a nobody, and now you're here now that I'm somebody, right? And it's like a debate of pride, right? Yes. How did you handle that conversation? It's like, oh, now you want to join.
It wasn't meant to be then.
Nor is it now.
and now you get to decide.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Still, we feel like there's a lot of, lip service. Like, yes, keep doing this, great job, and all that.
Like they'll just give you supportive words, and that's
right.
it. Yeah.
And no resource or other.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
Yes. But we along the way we found some really good people who went out of their way to help us.
But I kind of find that that's one of the most challenging parts of actually building a community. Because it almost doesn't work until it works, and then it starts to take the network effect, right? And I can speak on this because I've been a part of many different types of communities and tried to build. One of the ones particularly is like back in like 2016, 2017, I was very involved with like this blockchain group in Dallas, and that's taken many forms and organizations, and now it's turned into the Texas Blockchain Council and expanded and has done a lot of things. But like we saw a lot of the same things, which is like, okay, like, is this even a viable technology? Okay, or is there even value in coming and meeting up? And, you know, and then like, well, okay, what does like an organized structure look like? And then you meet all these people that are just kind of going in with a short-term mindset. So like, they will only support you if they can see a clear
Yes.
return back versus like the long-term vision, which with community, that's what it requires, is that long-term vision. So how do you kind of corral this moving momentum energy into like actionable things that can help support that community as well? What is the kind of the strategy and approach Dallas AI is taking?
It's the latter. You know, I believe in bootstrapping. So kind of took pride in doing this with minimal resources. We focused on the actual quality of the service. We said, let's make our events high quality. So what does it take to be a high quality event? You want a nice venue, but the most important thing is you want high quality speakers. You want people to come and feel like, yes, I got something out of it. And I think that's what paid off, because once people started associating it with, hey, if I go there, I'm probably going to have good experience. And the people that they met were also their peers. And there was a good mix of technical and non-technical people. That was another thing. We didn't want it to be like a super technical geek kind of group only. We wanted it to be practical, that, hey, how do you use this piece of technology to do something good? And then we also paid attention to students and other groups who were underserved. And that, I think, all of these things allowed us to build that reputation. Then people started noticing, and then we started getting more support. But all of that took its time. So during that time, we just decided focus on consistency and events and with the COVID kind of just made it hard. But after COVID, we just
so OpenAI has been, okay, so for context, when did OpenAI start? And
so Dallas AI started in 2017,
oh
November.
My God, I said OpenAI. I'm so sorry. You can tell where my head's at. Dallas AI.
Same level of reputation, though. Same level of reputation.
Well,
same level of valuation and resources as well, right?
I would, and I think
they
in
just
terms
announced
of
$10
Someone
billion
might say you might have a higher profit margin right now. And
that's hilarious.
And the situation in Iran is not impacting you.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah.
So when did Dallas AI actually become like something that you guys started doing consistently?
So our first event was in November 2017.
Oh wow. Okay. So before the AI, like everyone. I mean, I can't say before AI because AI has been around for a long time, but before all the enterprise, the ChatGPT and stuff, right?
Yes. The big thing around that time was deep learning.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
These neural networks that were just emerging and that could do some amazing things. And that's what we wanted to kind of see and understand, and we kind of were really curious. But that was not something that the ordinary person cared about. Now we have a very different kind of interest level, because everybody's now interested in AI. So that's a big difference in these 8 years.
Yeah, so like the natural demand for this type of knowledge and crave and community. Well, I'm kind of curious, like what were some of the community events and the type of people that were attending in like 2017 to 2020 comparatively to now? Because, this is a time period when, AI is starting to get a little bit more viability and recognition, at least in the enterprise lens. It's still very technical people, and people that have a little bit more capital to play with experimentation, infrastructure layer stuff. But was it like a lot of corporate type of folks, or was it like, I imagine there probably weren't a lot of startups, like, and whereas now I feel like it's probably a lot more startups. And so, yeah, walk us through like have you seen that demographic change as well over time?
Yeah, we had lots of corporate folks, lots of developers, some business folks as well, and then a few startups too. Because at that time, neural networks were new, And there were many startups trying to use that to create better products and better solutions. Companies were trying to see if this is something that they can use for, let's say, computer vision. Language modeling wasn't such a big thing. So it was mainly predictive machine learning and computer vision. And there was actually a startup in Dallas called Spacey that started around the same time around the idea of computer vision for retail. So I knew the founder, Skip Howard. So there were some people, but as usual in Dallas, they were like struggling and trying to find all the support they could. And at that time, the terms were machine learning and AI. And there's a difference between these two, but for the common people, we decided let's just go with AI.
Yeah. Even today, I mean, that's kind of silly.
That's how it is, yes.
So you also are very involved with another organization. I forget the name. What was it?
Prism? Our organization.
Yeah, Prism. What was it? Prism?
So Prism is a startup.
Okay.
So that's a startup, Prism Skills, where I've recently been working on full time. So the idea has been cooking for a while. Prism is a way for companies to create AI literacy for their employees, while at the same time helping them adopt AI. As you may have seen, companies are still struggling with adopting AI, trying to figure out the right use cases and getting their people on board. And there are many, many challenges. The challenge that Prism Skills is focused on is, hey, lots of people are busy. They don't really have time to spend long hours on learning AI. And everyone needs to be literate in AI, regardless of their job role, because it's going to impact everybody. So how do you create a micro-learning environment where they can spend 15 minutes a day? They don't even have to read something long. They can just listen and talk to Prism and learn something. And that you do it every day, it reinforces your skills. And all of that is done in the context of their job role and the industry they're in. So compare two very different situations. One person, let's say, is a finance manager at a bank, and the other one is a medical staff member at a healthcare facility. The way they approach AI is going to be completely different because they're looking at different use cases, scenarios, environments. So that's what Prism does. It adapts the learning based on their role and industry. And the company that employs these people, they can manage the content, they can customize the use cases, and they can track the analytics around their people. So they know what their people are struggling with, what kind of use cases are resonating with them, and they can even get their employees' feedback into their own strategy.
Right. No, so it's definitely a problem that is prevalent because, if I'm putting myself in the shoes of like any company, any local, even if you go like medical clinic, or if you go and they're trying to implement AI, there's like a change management aspect to it. Or even we go enterprise, and like if you're after you've integrated the tools, there's still like this aspect of, well, how does it actually change the process flow of the things that need to be done? And then you layer on top that AI is moving at such a rapid pace. There's like actually this joke in the AI community, because I'm been looking at this stuff for almost a couple months very aggressively now, and it's like if you're employed anywhere and then you can't keep up with AI. So basically, like the thought is like there's something happening every single day, and the only way to keep up is if you're actually unemployed. Or actually a startup founder, because that's like your day and that's like your night. So, and it's true, right? Like the number of things that are going on, it's like insane. So, it's hard for a business that's operating that has, tens of hundreds of people You've implemented the tool, you've invested in it, but you've neglected the training and the change management component, which is where I'm kind of seeing that, Prism Skills kind of comes in plants. Would you agree with that?
I agree. I think it's a very good point. In change management part has human aspects too, because we all know that AI will take away jobs. I think there's been lots of people saying different things. The reality is that if somebody is doing something repetitive and manual, there's no way that they can keep doing it with AI.
Yeah. Yes.
I think another element for the upskilling is that people can learn about it, but being able to think in a way how to implement it in your day-to-day is like the connecting element that people are forgetting. And it's like, I think if you're looking at an individual that works in tech, or if you're looking at a younger person, it's a lot easier to adapt those things because we grew up relatively in the Google generation, right? So for me, it's like, if I was thinking about anything growing up, it's either Google or YouTube. Before I even start, if I'm buying a shoe, I'm Googling what shoe to get, right? And why I should get that shoe. Similarly, I'm doing the same thing with, cloud or any other, AI agent that's 6. I'm like, all right, here are the top 3 shoes. Which one should I get? These are my specific parameters, and it does a better job of condensing and giving me that information. And I think a lot of times when people are looking in their day-to-day habits, it's that they're not looking about where AI can fit in and how to improve their outcome. And I think with a lot of people with jobs and things like that, one is like, yes, jobs will be replaced, but the other thing, some jobs won't be replaced, but they'll probably prefer the candidate that is able to use an AI tool to do a better job at that particular job. And I think that's sometimes the disconnect that often happens. So, it's not as simple as like, making a user account and calling it a day, but I think what you're really tackling is the knowledge and application of that knowledge, right? And changing that wiring in one's mind on how they should interact with AI and think about AI. Now, I want to go back here because you're doing like 2 really difficult things, right? You're trying to educate folks in AI. At the same time, you're trying to build a community that is specific around AI. And then on top of it, you probably have to deal with a lot of critics against AI, right? And so you're trying, it seems like 2 steps forward is 1 step back from everyone else that might be happening, because even within tech spaces, there's people who are wanting to be anti-AI because it does feel a level of threatening their employability and things like that. How are you navigating those dialogues in, I don't want to say an optimistic light, but being optimism to those who are against it to get them to understand? Because it is a sensitive topic. Like, I think it's easy to say that, yes, people will lose their jobs, but I think people need to also have assurance on how things will be looking like in the near future.
Yeah, I think the first thing is to acknowledge the challenges of AI, because there are a lot of potential negatives associated with AI. So I actually try my best to share those concerns, because if people are not aware, then a lot of damage can be done. So I tell people about, the bias that the AI has, all the misinformation it can spread, how it can erode trust. There's also all these mistakes that it makes, how it can, influence the minds of people, and the limits of these models, because they're all trained on data set that's provided, and which is a black box. And the misuse of AI for, let's say, surveillance or oppression or warfare. Mm-hmm. So people need to understand both aspects of AI. It's not all nice and positive. If you study the history of technology is never neutral. Mm-hmm. People take it and use it. AI is different because it's the first time we're dealing with another sort of intelligence, and it's recursive, so it becomes really good very fast, and that throws people off. And society is not really ready for it. So I think the jobs problem can be tackled, but you have to get your act together. And when I look at the society and how we do things, I don't really see people in power making the right calls and moving at the right speed. That really worries me because, once, like they say, how did you get bankrupt? It says gradually and then suddenly. It's going to, at one point, seem very sudden.
It's going to be an immediate drop off.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can see it intuitively because every time I do something and I feel like, oh, it's gotten so good.
It's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And now I say, okay, then
It's scary.
it's scary.
For me, it's hard to not fall into like eschatology conversations with like other believers. Cause like you see certain things and I'm like, oh yeah, that one was a fake video. I'm like, are you sure?
Yeah,
Because that looked real.
Yeah.
But they're like, no, it's fake. And I remember the first time when I saw it, was like the very famous like,
Will Smith one.
video in spaghetti. I'm like, all right,
Spaghetti.
I'm fine. And like cutscene, I'm like, the dog won't get me. Cutscene, 6 months. I'm like, all right, now I don't know. Now I'm not too sure anymore. But it is a very alarming thing, and in its glory, I think sometimes we pass over some legitimate fears, right? And I think I shared a video with you about like Palantir, and they have like an entire SaaS solution on essentially being able to assassinate people, right? And it's literally a UI dashboard. There's a Kanban board on tracking targets, and the AIs behind it that can maintain and manage all these things. And that's very concerning stuff. I think for me it was also when you had all the Facebook hearings, I think a year or two ago. And you had so many like government officials like asking like how Facebook makes money. And I'm like, that is such an elementary conversation point.
Yeah, and they couldn't even have like a basic level
understanding
conversation
on how that function, right?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean you sell ads? I'm like, that compared to
What's
the
going on
intricacies
now?
of AI, it's like a 20 by 20 Rubik's Cube, right? And you're getting stuck on a 1 by 1 Rubik's Cube,
Yeah.
And so I'm like concerned, right? And I think to your point, people will take advantage of it, and they're incentivized to take advantage of it. That's kind of what we saw with like Napster back in the day, kind of like a very insane wild, wild west. But the wild, wild west with this type of technology is, I mean, you can look at nations falling apart if it goes, unmonitored. How do you, I guess, what's been the general response like within the community when you talk about the polarities that exist with this type of technology?
I would say maybe 30% are still skeptic, or they feel like, I got time. But I do see young people struggling more, like right out of college, trying to find jobs.
Yeah.
And this is specific to the job market.
Especially the job market, yes.
I think this past year, I have to check this statistic, but majority of folks that were hired in the past like 12 months were actually
Like average above 50 or something like that.
like
some
average
number
like 35 or something like that, like experienced employees.
Okay, 35 and 50 are different though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. One sounds like
selfishly.
yeah.
No, but like I think the job. So I have some thoughts about the job aspect and about like innovative technology in general. Like it's not the first time this is an innovative technology is coming in and displacing. The one side of the house is very keen on saying, hey, like this will unlock a lot of human potential and capital and time and resourcing, like is targeted in the right direction. So very similar to like how like when Adobe came out with Photoshop, before that, designers were like, hand picking one pixel by pixel.
Right.
And then after Adobe came out with, some tooling, it's not like the field of designing just went away. In fact, there was a proliferation of design. And same thing with like even like creating other layers of stacks of technology on top of assembly and C# and Java and things like that, right? Like you're just building on top. So there is a natural proliferation that can occur and happen. I think, and I actually believe it. I think that there will be some aspects of that. I think the question to be asked is the rate of change. How fast is it going to happen, and can society sustain that rate of change?
Yes.
And that's the main question for us to ponder on, because like society relatively has not moved in a positive direction in the last 3 years. And in fact, some would argue that it's probably gone in the opposite direction with inflation and other aspects of like standard living, and education even, right? Like the effects of COVID are still affecting our kid population. So, and then you couple that with like all the incentivized decisions that are going to be made. So it's kind of like, when is this going to fall? When is it going to break? And what are we going to do about it at a systemic level?
Yeah, I mean, my guess is that within 3 years, there'll be major changes. If you've been following the sort of the policy movements and all that, I think the 20th of March, just like last Friday, there was a new U.S. AI policy framework that was released, very high level, talks about things like, the states should really not create AI laws, and they should let the federal government do it, but the federal government should respect the power of state. So they're still trying to figure out that level. They acknowledge things like, we should try to get ready to educate schools and people, but the reality is that I've been following the education space really closely, and the whole system was designed for a very different kind of training and testing. And I think this memory-based and just a recall of information, that is not going to be relevant anymore. And the schools are not ready because by nature, they're bureaucratic and slow-moving. And they have never seen this magnitude of change. So I'm worried about the young people. Who are they going to trust? Well, how are they going to learn? And with so much misinformation.
I mean, literacy rates also increasing year after year in the United States, right? Like even the idea of reading is repulsive for adults, let alone for children. And then, I mean, one of my really good friends, they worked at Teach for America for 2 years up in Memphis, and they just like, it's just like, these are 7th graders who don't know how to read, right? For many of them, their biggest worry is just getting food on the table, right? And so there's so many challenges, and I think, when you look at the issues of like Louisiana or Mississippi, who are generally on the lowest end of academia too in the nation, like these are fellow Americans who are going to be not left behind even on modern standards. They're being left behind from standards of like the 20th century, right? Which is an alarming challenge, and it's gonna be a big burden. So I want to talk about a little bit pivot here, because obviously you did a lot of community building here, but you spent a good amount of time abroad. And for many tech people, their dream place to end up is usually Japan. So what was your secret on how'd you end up in the nation of the rising sun?
So I went there right after my undergrad.
Oh, okay.
Because I found a scholarship there, and I figured that, it would be a good way for me to see the country and study there.
Be in the country.
And so I went there really knowing not a whole lot, just like, taking a chance and saying, okay, it's a good school.
What year was this? Like
this was 92.
1992.
Yes, another century.
You said it, not me, right?
Yeah. I believe in getting right ahead of yourself. Right?
I was still in Jannah. I haven't made my way out.
Yes, those were interesting times. So the funny thing is, now my son is studying there.
Oh, really?
As an exchange student. So he's at UNT, but for a year he was a foreign student, and he's now there. He's in Osaka. I was in Tokyo.
Okay.
But
you pick up some Japanese?
Me?
I hope, yeah.
Yeah, but while I was there, I learned it.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to know Japanese, even though it's so difficult. It's one of the hardest languages to learn.
It's actually not that hard.
I found Japanese pretty easy, to be honest. I'm doing Chinese right now.
Okay, that's hard.
Chinese is hard.
Yeah. Chinese is
I think
Chinese is supposed to be one of the hardest languages, but I thought Japanese was too.
Right. Now. So there's the written Japanese is relatively difficult, because they use the same kind of Chinese characters, the kanji, but they only use 500 or 600.
Yeah.
And then they also have these phonetic symbols, hiragana and katakana, which are very easy to read and pronounce, because it's not like English or other Arabic. There's no guess.
But lack of consistency, which I guess holds up true to Western standards too in terms of principles. Always exceptions to principles. Consistent in that manner, at least. But yeah, I mean, I think so. You spent your time abroad. Was there anything that happened in Japan that kind of shaped or triggered shift the sails on your ship in a different direction as to where you're at now? Because 5 years, 1 year I get studying broadly, but 5 years is a sizable amount of time. Where because I think Eastern influences are way more aligned with like Islamic characteristics, right? And I think that's why you have such a huge rise of Islam in Japan currently. And so I'm just kind of curious what your experience was like back in 1992.
So I think the biggest thing that's one sees over there is how much pride people take in their work, regardless of what kind of work there is. It's also more a society where there's not a huge difference between the top leadership and the working class.
In terms of like financially,
the way they interact, the way they work. So here you see more of a big difference. And then the work ethics is very different. And sometimes you do feel like that, there's too much focus on conformity and everybody's supposed to work hard till late hours. But they also, are very responsible. Usually, if you give them work, you can expect them to do well. Here, it's like I'm always watching out.
There's exceptions. You'll find really good talent.
Yes.
But then you'll also find very not so good talent. So it's inconsistent.
Inconsistent, yeah.
Do you ever, while you were there, would you ever consider yourself living there long term? Like, what was the shift from like 5 years? Was it just purely school and then you left immediately, or did you?
So 2 years school and 3 years work.
Yeah.
And no, I did not plan on living there long term because I felt that would be really hard. Life is kind of hard there.
Yeah.
Especially a city like Tokyo is like very dense and very crowded and very expensive. And you kind of, as a foreigner, you're like very prominent there. You
stick out like a sore thumb.
Thumb. And I just felt that, hey, I need to go and learn more in a language that's easier for me to get. Otherwise, I would always be like struggling at two layers. First, trying to figure out what the Japanese means, and then what actually is the concept or thing that I'm trying to learn. And I thought about it and I said, I don't want to spend that extra time. So let's see if I can move to the US where I can just learn in English and cut through that and maybe more opportunities. So I think that was my thinking. Other people, may invest more in learning the language and then doing something where they add more value because they're bilingual. I think that being bilingual is good. I think it helps you in many ways. And even that thing has ported over to today's world where you don't want to be single major. You want to be bilingual in terms of your specialties. You need to know a few different fields.
Especially right
now. So you can look at the problem from a broader perspective, not a very narrow perspective.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, especially right now, right? I think there's like something about like being bilingual or knowing multiple languages, which unlocks like different neural pathways. I don't know, this probably needs to be fact checked, but like your brain naturally makes different connection points and sees different signals. Processes different signals.
True.
And so like you're able to like understand communication differently. You're able to process information differently, which is really fascinating. And I feel like there's also like an upward, like I would assume that learning your second or third language is harder than learning your fourth or fifth, because then you're like naturally just like in a rhythm and you understand how the mechanics of like picking up something. So it's like, this is how you see, like a lot of Europeans, they know like 6-7 languages, right?
Yeah, they do have an advantage because it's like Latin based, so they can kind of morph around. It's like when like
that's true,
like Bangla, Hindi, and Urdu. Like you can pick up.
I don't
the
consider
other ones
those different languages. Well, Bangla,
but that's my point, right? They're very
Hindi
very
and Urdu
near
is like the
close.
same.
Yeah.
Unless if you're reading, you know.
Chinese has definitely been the hardest one for me so far. But okay, so as you've kind of moving back to the United States, what was that transition like? Because that is, like you're mentioning, you kind of have to go from a culture that like respects the work that they're doing. They try to do it with the level of excellence. The financial disparity between the working class and I guess the leading class isn't, you know, a Ferrari and a half, right? Like, whereas here you have far more of a range. Folks are far less incentivized as a Muslim, right? Because there is that Islamic element of like doing things with the sound and all those elements. How was that transition like coming back to here, especially as a leader and as a community organizer? I mean, that does take a level of patience one has to have being in those roles. How did you kind of think through and I guess work through that?
So a small correction. So I wasn't moving back.
Yeah.
I was coming into the US because my undergrad was in Pakistan.
Oh, all there. Okay.
Yes. So from there, I went to Japan.
And then
then
came
from
here.
Japan, I came to the US. And when I came here, I was a
so it's
grad
gonna
student.
be-
So I was a graduate student. So I was going through the change of how the schools work here, how the system works here, and just, you know, figuring out all the system here, like, you know, how do I file my taxes?
Yeah.
Because before that, I never had to file my taxes anywhere in the world. It was like something all automatic.
Does that feel like more like a bigger culture shock, like going Pakistan to Japan or Japan to US?
I think Pakistan to Japan was a bigger
Culture
culture shock.
yeah.
Yeah. Because for obvious reasons, right?
Yeah.
Japan is like so clean, so well organized, and high tech.
Everyone has a process and stands in
Yeah.
line. Pakistan there is no line, bro. There's no concept of a line.
And over there, you're like just, you know, you're just you.
Yeah.
And in Japan, you're standing anywhere, you realize
You are we.
you're like so different from everybody else. And, you know, so so that was, I think, a much bigger one. And then coming over here was a bit, but not too bad. It was more like, oh, wow, how relaxed people are, how casual they are. And, you know, you get used to that.
Do you how is the transition going from like that to eventually becoming an entrepreneur? Because I think a lot of you know, folks who immigrate here in like first gen, there is a sense of do the stable thing, you know, low risk, get your, you know, bearings down. But it seems like, you know, you had a corporate career, you did that, and eventually you had the ability to make that transition. Is that something you've always wanted to do, or did just the opportunity come up and that's when you like made the choice to do so?
I did want to do that, but, you know, I didn't really plan out things exactly how they happened.
Mm-hmm.
I was in that time when there were major shifts. So in 1992, one of the things that was happening was the internet, the email. I still remember the time when my professor told me that, hey, come look at this big Sun Spark station. And he showed me, here's how the email works. And he created me an account. And, you know, I learned the Unix operating system because that's the computers we had. Mm-hmm. And there was a Mac, which was very expensive at that time. Later on, got to work on it. But that was a specialty for most of the research work. It was those Unix stations. And the good thing is that taught me how to do command line things, which after 30 plus years, I'm back because now there's Cloud Code with command line.
Yeah.
I can go and do these things, but without having to remember how those commands work, because I can ask Claude to do that for me, and I can do the basic, you know, file system stuff. But because of that change, when the internet came, I think it was at least as exciting as today's AI. Some people will argue that that was a much bigger change with a very clear impact on productivity and things. So there was just so much excitement about innovation, and people watched these browser wars. Obviously, way before your time, but Microsoft and Netscape had a
it
big
got
fight.
heated.
Yes,
Yeah.
big fight about who's going to be the monopoly over internet, and no, you cannot have your browser for like 98% of the people. So that created a lot of opportunity and innovation. And I wanted to be a part of that, but when I tried to do that, the 2000 internet bubble happened, which, just for your knowledge, was a big crash in the tech companies, and people lost a lot of money. So as a visa holder, I was forced to go back to a more stable job. And I said, makes sense to get my green card and all that done before I do something really risky. So I waited and did that. And during that time got settled in Dallas because that was like the nice middle ground between Boston, where I was, and California, where I wanted to go. And I kind of got stuck in Dallas for a while. And that's where
on a layover.
Exactly. And, it's like skip flag. You just stay there. So, and then I said, okay, if I'm going to stay here, let's make the best out of this, and let's just, take a chance and do the startup thing. And that's when in 2010, I saw the sharp rise of social media, user-generated content. And I saw opportunity there. And that's where I kind of went into entrepreneurship without really realizing how much of a gamble that was, and how difficult would it be to sort of sell some of that to the enterprise world. So it wasn't really well planned, but I wanted to do it, so I just figured, no, do it now.
Sometimes that's part of the beauty, right? Like the journey. And sometimes like there's this thing in like entrepreneurship where if you knew how difficult it was going to be, would you have even started? Most times, even if you ask the founders that are successful, they say no, because it was infinitely more difficult than what we thought.
Right.
So no, that's very insightful background and experience. And so like your entrepreneur, so in 2010, you like are thinking about this entrepreneurship concept, and you're gonna start trying to sell something in enterprise. What was that business? What was it? If you could like give like maybe like a couple second pitch on what it was and that journey.
So that was social media analytics for businesses. So we used to collect all of the data around a company's brand, products, anything that is of interest to them. Collect that, analyze it, gives them dashboard reports and actions that they could take on that data.
And how early was this? What was the time?
It was,
you said was it 2010 when you started?
2010, yes.
Wow, this is early.
Yes. So our main product was connect with all of the major social media providers like Twitter, Facebook, blogs, YouTube. Get all the data back that matches certain kind of keywords and terms. Let's say Walmart. Once we have all the data, then provide a way for our business users to look at a dashboard, drill down into the details, understand the sentiments, understand the topics, figure out what was going on, report it, help them do something with it. So that was the product. And we were dealing with large volumes of data. And at that time, the tech stack was very different, and there were very few products that could deal with this kind of streaming data.
Yeah, were APIs even existing for these tools?
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, this is like barely when social media is just really starting.
Right.
The consumer trend of social media is like starting.
Yes.
Instagram isn't even developed yet, right?
Instagram got sold right in front of us. It came and it got sold within a very short amount of time. And we remember sitting down with our customers and joking about, one customer used to say, let me tell you how I imagine this happened. And this is how, these guys walked in, they said 1 billion, and he said, here are the keys, I'm going. So that all happened, and, Pinterest came, and TikTok wasn't there at that time. So there was a big back, but ironic thing is I also saw all the negative aspects of social media. And I tried to tell people and everybody ignored it. They just didn't care, or they thought it wasn't real. But I could see it in front of my eyes and I could see the proof. But people did not want to acknowledge it or deal with it or do anything about it. And now you see there's a whole list of movies and documentaries and books and people talking about, and it's still a big problem that hasn't been solved. That's that. There are some parallels to today's world of AI, where we can see the problems right now, but we're not doing anything about it. It will have a much bigger negative consequence.
Yeah, and I think it was like during school, they'd say like every warning or sign that you see on anything, whether it be your phone or the car, somebody died for that rule. Right? Like some error happened and that's why they made these changes. And now like plastic bag, do not put it over your head. Enough people died for that to now have to be written out on a plastic bag. And I feel like with social media, the issues that happened or are happening are very consequential. But I think the issues for the individual and for society, whereas like for AI, the issues could be catastrophic to the point where you can't like just undo it.
Yes.
And I think that's where the stakes are even higher. True. Essentially. How do you, because I feel like this is like a situation, not just like the boy who cried wolf, right? But like there is this like impending threat. And like for me, what reminds me is when Prophet Muhammad was like telling about like, you know, the story of him saying like, if there is an army coming behind that mountain, like, would you believe me? Right? And him finally alluding to like the day of judgment is going to be a far greater threat, right? Do you sometimes feel, I don't want to say like the crazy person, right? Because these situations, it does make you feel like a crazy person where you're like, there's a huge imminent threat that's coming and nobody's like paying attention. How do you handle that? Or how do you, you know, go through that dialogue for people to understand that like, hey, this is an amazing tool, but there's a lot of threats to this that we aren't working actively to prevent.
There's no good way to, you know, convince people, because I think people just create these.
They're going to do what they're incentivized to do.
And I think it's part of the challenge is that there's so much lack of focus on the real substantive things. People are just sort of mindlessly doing things. Yeah. Either they have a routine and they're enjoying life, or, you know, they're in a whole different environment where they're trying to struggle. They don't have time for thinking about these kind of dangers that they can't really see in front of them. Right. And I worry about countries with a large number of young population who will struggle to do something productive. Like if you look at today, a lot of these back offices of the world are doing some sort of work, but most of that work is going to be the victim of automation. And then if they're not ready, what are they going to do? How are they going to, you know, shift and adapt?
Yeah, and I think that's the dialogue people don't really think about, right? Because it's like that's going to be, you know, homelessness issue, drug issues, violence issues. All these things are going to get impacted, and then, you know, eventually it's going to come into your neighborhood with those issues, and now you're going to be the one saying like, how did this happen? You know, and it's a long road out to fixing that versus preventing that.
So I did want to go back to your the social media CPG analysis tool that you worked on, because, you know, one, I want to ask what your role was with it and how you kind of got your first early customers, and then I believe you ended up selling that and exiting that company as well. So then talking about that journey, the experiences there as well. And I mean, this is like all credit to you because this is relatively early, I would say, in the landscape of social media. I feel like I see one of these tools popping up like every couple of years now. So there's still like a massive market for like these customized UCG. You know, now there's like industry vertical specific ones as well. So yeah, I would love to learn a little bit more about like exactly what you like tangibly did for that business, as well as like how that sale process was, and if you could go back and give yourself some advice during that sale, what would that be?
So I think the key thing that I did was to convince a number of people to work on it with me.
That's always the key thing.
That's always the key thing, right? But I don't know if they'd agree with me that it was the best thing for them. But in terms of bootstrapping, I decided we don't want to go out and try to raise money for it in Dallas. It's not going to go well. So we just said, well, let's create a product, let's get some customers. To create a product, we needed people who could work on it, and then people who could take it to market. And then we could do something about where to go from there. So, finding a technical co-founder, some other folks who would work on it, some initial hires, first sales, getting an angel investor. All of that was things that I did. And I learned about dealing with customers, right? Mm-hmm. So lots of rejections. Like, we would go and show the product, initial idea to people, and you just, show it to 100 people. Few people say, yes, interesting, come back to me when you do X, Y, Z. That's a very common thing. You go to somebody for feedback, and they, first thing is, you have to kind of be on their calendar. It takes effort, be there, talk to them, and then they say, good effort, but you're very early. Come back to me when you have X, Y, Z, and I'll see what I can do. Maybe I'll introduce you to my friend. So you see this, like you're doing all this effort and all you're getting is this. If you do all this more, then you will get another introduction. I will probably not buy from you. And then I realized, because I'd never done sales before that time, you were just like a student, researcher, corporate employee and all that. When you're doing these kind of sales, you realize, there's a trust issue. People think you're just a startup founder. If I buy from you, will you be there?
In a year.
How stable is your product? Yeah. And how, all of those things come in play. And then there was a point when the product became pretty good. People would say, oh yeah, this is good stuff. But then they would have all those other things. And then we realized the corporate sales, there's a whole different angle where you have to go and approach the procurement teams and do all the other extra stuff. And I said, we really can't do that. That is just too much, and that's just not possible. So let's try to find partners who could sell. And again, that sounds really good. Find a partner, they'll take their cut, they'll sell it for you.
A lot harder to do.
A lot harder to do for many, many reasons. Ideal state, great, but doesn't happen like that. Some people will sign up, but then their real priorities are different. They don't have enough skin in the game. Or some people will become partners, but then they will have very unfair terms. So that was a lot of lessons to learn. And even so during that whole process, I think the thing that I would tell myself now is that you just have to be careful with the kind of people you work with. I think it's a good idea to get enough customers and raise funds at the right time, not too early, not too late. But those are the two important things. Have enough customers so that you have a solid base, and then raise money for the right reasons, for growth and for all those things. Because without that, it's really hard to scale up. You can come to a certain point and then you kind of become stuck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What was so you ended up selling the company though,
yes.
right? So what was the buying party, and how have they used it? What was their motivations? Yeah. And then if you're comfortable sharing what that amount was that they purchased for as well.
Yeah. So we came to a point where our revenue kind of flattened out. and we weren't really growing. So that became a problem because our competitors were growing bigger and bigger. So we had to sell. So it was a kind of a sale where we had to go out and look. So that is not always the best for a startup because, then your choices are not as wide or big as you wanted them to be. So there was this research and insights company out of Chicago that had used our software. And there were a few other companies, but they were who were interested, but they had their own challenges going on. So we struck a deal with this company for a pretty small amount. I think it was less than $2 million. But even then, there were a lot of hiccups and issues and challenges because the buying party was also not really set up to sell this kind of software because the software that we had created was heavy on operating cost. You had to buy all the data, only then you could analyze it. So that's a different dynamic. That means that regardless of customers, you have a fixed cost that you have to make up. In traditional software, you build software and there's really no cost other than that. So everything after that is your margin. But in this case, we had to keep improving the software and keep buying the data. And the data rates were not in our control because they were coming from social media companies and they would change all of their terms and conditions every year, even sometime before that. So we were getting squeezed. So this was the kind of situation which larger companies are better suited, smaller companies are not. That's another lesson, is that build something where you have more control over your supply chain as well as how you sell it, so that your dependency is minimized.
No, I think you've shared a lot of meaningful lessons that I think every founder needs to be reminded of. And I think they're also the most heavy weighing, right? Mm-hmm. Long-term in your journey. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes you can get lost in the excitement at the beginning, but you have to be very tactile and thorough on how you make those transitions. But I mean, beyond that, it's really exciting to hear people like you whose career was so expansive and so in different ways, but still able to find their way on making something meaningful, but still having a core tenet in that. With that, I do want to say thank you again for joining us at the Caravan podcast. We want to say, I appreciate the time. There's so much we can talk about. I mean, Japan, I just want to go even longer on, but I digress. But Babar, thank you so much for joining us and sharing what you're doing with Dallas AI, and as well as your time at as Chief AI Officer at Prism. We're excited on everything that's coming ahead. So thank you.
Thank you.
So